All right, good morning, everyone. Wave meteorologist Brian Good on this follow-up really edition here of Storm Talk on this 6th day here of April. Let me be clear, there's no storms in the way, all right? This is just a follow-up to what took place yesterday. I want to discuss a little more on that. Also wanted to cover the setup from what it's ahead of us as we get into this upcoming weekend as well, and update you guys on the weather pattern for the Easter holiday, in case you guys are curious about that. Got several things I want to touch base on as well when it comes to some of the reports we were getting from the Weather Service. Still waiting on some of the final surveys to come back from that. I'll explain on that coming up here in just a second and where we stand on that. As first off, is everyone okay? Let me know if you're okay. Everyone's fine. If you got any damage or anything like that, let me know as well. I know some areas have been hit obviously a lot harder than others in the zone, but certainly in the core portion there of the city. Stephen, yes, I did get your photo. I'm not sure if you've seen it on or not. It has been sent out to the newsroom, and Stephen is down. Was it 60 and Joe Prather, right? 313, where the semis were all toppled over in that area. We'll talk more about Meade County here in just a second. Everyone seems to be okay, from what I can tell in the comments there. The power outages, I'm watching the numbers on that. Looks like Louisville, or as far as Jefferson County goes, it's about 9,400 still without power. Bullitt County is at 22. I don't see anything really that ranks up there like Jefferson County right now. Jefferson County is in the thousands. I don't have a map up right now or an image up of KU, or I'm sorry, Duke Energy, so I'm not sure on those numbers, but I'm sure there are still some numbers that are up there. Okay, let me start. A couple things. I'm going to take this full so you guys can see it. This was our SkyTrack camera at Ollie International at 5:05 yesterday afternoon. Now, you can't see the runways, but they're there. This is normally the shot we would show the planes taking off. Look right over in this area, and you'll see when the winds really ramped up and the potential tornado took place, you'll see the transformers blow right there into the tree line. Looks like lightning, but those are the transformers. Anytime you see transformers blowing like that, that is a strong indication, especially in a tornadic setup, that a tornado is on the ground when you see that take place. We always look for the transformer flashes. When we see that, we instantly think, oh no, this is not good. This is, again, looking right at the runway for UPS and the planes. So that's about one of the starting points that we were starting to see some of the problems, although the damage obviously started back into around PRP, which is where some of the surveys are likely going to take place. So let me explain where we stand on that. I'll start with the damage areas that the Weather Service is focused on based on the radar trends. I'm going to show you the radar trends too, but also on the reports you guys have sent in. We'll start, first off, getting rid of the spammer. Sorry about that. Let me get rid of them. 1 second. All right, I think they're gone. Okay, first off, this was the first tornado warning we had yesterday. I believe it was about 4:40 in the afternoon when that took place. That's when we got into Crawford County. I remember talking about Leavenworth. I remember that circulation really starting to show up there. At least a strong field on the wind side was really ramping up at that point, right on the Ohio River. And that tracked near Corden. We saw the wind really ramp up on the Corden camera as well. And then that kept the tornado warning going all the way into Floyd. And that was the reason why that tornado warning got all the way to just west there of New Albany as far as the sirens going off. And then we started to lose the signal at that point on rotation, but we certainly saw it all the way across Harrison County. So the Weather Service is heading there. There's actually a crew that should already be there, in fact, that is checking out the potential damage there. The other one, which is what Stephen was referring to, which so far, yes, everything that's blown over that we've seen in Meade County looks to be blown over in one direction, a strong signal of straight line winds. But that's something the Weather Service is going to be checking out. And it's just east out. I always get this confused, so make sure you guys help me out. Is it Ekron or Ekron? Ekron or Ekron? Stephen, you probably would know. I've heard two different things on this, and I don't want to make anyone mad because I mispronounce things a lot. And I know mispronouncing your street or your town is not good. So let me know which one it is so I make sure we get that correct. Anyway, it's just east of there, across Meade County, right into the northern side there of Hardin County. Right now, early indications are it looks to be straight line wind, but again, we'll get the final call on that from the Weather Service, and we may know by midday for today. Well, I'm seeing Ekron and Ekron, so let me know which one it is. I'm going to have to do a survey. Okay, then we get into the actual segment that was moving across Jefferson County that caused the biggest issue here is where we started to get the reports of damage, and we believe this is where the someone lost their life was there at Dixie Highway and PRP. We don't know if it's part of that apartment complex or not. That's still being finalized, and the numbers. It doesn't matter where they were. It's just horrible that someone lost their life in this. Right there on Dixie Highway. As you get very close again to around Brooklawn Drive area, that apartment complex near Iroquois Park. And then as it cuts all the way through around the airport, you see Ollie International was right at that moment. And then also south of the Snyder or the Waterston, around Bishop Lane, Newburgh Road, not far from GE, and then right into J-Town. That's the other spot. Actually, the Weather Service is there right now. They've been there for 2 hours already this morning. We do know that at least the middle portion of that, which was announced yesterday, has already been rolled EF1 tornado. We know that. Now, the question is, and this is where surveys can get a little tricky, is there is a chance it could be set up where there was a tornado that touched down, went back up, touched down again, and then went back up, and maybe touched down a third time. Sometimes that's ruled as one tornado. Sometimes it is ruled as three different tornadoes that touch down along that path because they do spin up and they cycle back in and then they redevelop again, which was something we were talking about yesterday. That can happen in the setup here. When you get the wiggles in a squall line, you get these fast spinning vortices, we call them, that develop. They can touch down and go back up. It's not a typical supercell of a tornado on the ground for counties on end like we've seen on the headlines in the news in the past couple of weeks. This was not that kind of a setup. This was embedded into a squall line. So it's a little more of a challenge to figure out which portion of it was just straight line wind, which portion of it was actually something spinning and touching the ground. The rain was very heavy. It was likely rain wrapped. Wherever we saw this move through, that makes it a challenge visually. I mean, you couldn't tell anything from the SkyTrack camera there. We just saw a wall of rain and the transformers blowing. It may very well be in there. So this is where the damage is crucial in telling the storyline. It's fascinating to watch when the Weather Service does these surveys. I've been out on several of them in my career, and it's fascinating how they take into account the type of wood, which direction it was thrown, the shape, what type of trees have the bark ripped off of them, if the grass was torn at all, if there's any pavement that was scarred. There's so many things that come into play, and they automatically know. It's automatically put into a system they've got, and it determines how this was going to be rated, whether a straight line wind, when they compare it to the radar, or a tornado. So usually it's fairly quick on getting these results, but when you have a lot of different damage areas and you get a complex setup here where there could have been a skipping, it does take a little more time. But I know that John Gord, the Weather Service, was at least able to get to that middle portion around Newburgh Road. And it's like, I already know, just by looking at this section right here, this is an EF1. We know that. But we don't know if that was a continuous tornado or not. We're going to know, again, at some point today. We should know the official ruling on that. Let me show you the radar from yesterday as it moved through. You see the line itself. It's interesting. If you remember looking at Futurecast, if you were with me on the blog yesterday, we had that little notch that was showing up. And I said, I don't like seeing that little notch. They had a line that was covered this way and one down to the south. And I was like, look at that little notch right there as it moves along 64. That was the, I believe that was the HER model we were looking at. If that's the case, did very well on picking that up, because it's exactly the area that we saw right at the apex there of the bend that was moving, and it tracked right along I-64. Let me try to zoom in a little more. Hold on one second, and we'll do this frame by frame in different spots here. So I want you guys to kind of see what happened. I don't have the wind velocity data. Unfortunately, that goes away after a certain amount of time, but at least want to show you the radar. So here we are. It's 2:42 yesterday. Storms were then beginning to approach. There's a few that were out ahead of the main line. So these were not severe in Harrison County into Salem. These were just the general thunderstorms. Here's the main line. This did produce the severe damage that was starting to show up. Strong wind reports, the airport sensor in Owensboro and Evansville, those numbers were starting to go up in that area. Then as the storm moved into Crawford County, this is the point here where we likely got at least either the straight line wind or the touchdown. Again, if you look carefully at that line at 427, it's not a perfectly straight line. There are some wiggles here involved in that, so it's really difficult to pick up. The wind field here was really ramping up. I know on the velocity at that point when that tornado warning came out for portions there of Crawford County, and then that moved into Harrison. Let me advance this a little more, and you'll see it move right over into Corden. At this point, we are now at 4:44 in the afternoon. There is, again, a bit of an uptick, but if you look carefully, you can see why that tornado warning was issued. Right there, there's that notch that forms where you've got just a relatively broad circulation there, but you never want to see that kind of a notch in a line. When it's straight, going from the greens and the yellows and reds, kind of all lined up there, that's a good indicator of a straight line wind. But when it starts to get not exactly uniform there, that's when you got problems, and you've got certainly rotation taking place. That was the first strong signal. This looks to be, and this is when the storm was moving through Meade. It's hard to tell. There is a bit of a notch right there in that portion of Meade County, but the majority of that line does look like it was more of a bow echo and straight line winds just by looking at it right now. But again, I don't have all the data on it, but that's the way it looks, at least from the radar review, looking back at that afternoon or yesterday afternoon about 4:50 there. All right, we get into 5:02. At this point, we're still watching what's happening into western Floyd County. Circulation was starting to weaken at that point, but then, and let me try to zoom in a little more. Then at this point, we were really starting to watch what was happening into Jefferson County. This is where we were starting to see the wind flow really ramp up on the radar. I'm going to animate this. Hold on one second. My computer's a little slow. As it moves right across Jefferson, there's PRP. Boom, right there. It crossed into the airport. That's at 5:10. The camera you saw yesterday was at 5:05. The Skytrack camera, so already past the airport. It was already at this point hitting Newburgh and the western side of J-Town. Kept going. They issued the other tornado warning at this point for northeast areas of Jefferson County, because again, you got a notch riding through here. The straight line wind portion that was now into Fern Creek was starting to weaken. So the circulation was really twofold. Let me back this up. Hold on. Let's look at this again. If you look at it, there was a circulation in Floyd, strong winds in central Jefferson, but really both sections of that line were very powerful as it moved right there across Floyd County into Jefferson and into parts there of Oldham County. And then it kept going with strong winds, but it lost its signature quite a bit once you got east of 65. It just so happens that the worst of the system was right over the Louisville Metro at that moment as it passed on by. Anyway, I want to at least give you guys an idea of some of the things we were looking at that exact moment on the radar trends, and we'll keep you updated on what the Weather Service says as we get to about midday today. So what's next? Well, the good news is it's just light rain today. It is chilly. It's in the 40s. Light rain. No flighting issues I've seen being reported. It's just kind of a crummy setup today. But sometimes days like this are not terrible. I think everyone just kind of needs a quiet setup, right? Kind of relax, chill out for a bit. And that's what this weather pattern is going to do for us. We need it. We need a chance to get things cleaned up. I saw tons of utility trucks on I-65 this morning. Several semis were loaded with the power poles in the back of them. So they're hard at work. They're everywhere. I know I saw the images there, of course, the Preston Highway and Fern Valley Road area, all the way into, yes, Tawana? Tawana seems like urgent. It seems urgent. What is it? Waterston Park. Okay, right there at Newburgh area. Okay. That was the EF1 tornado. That would be at the airport. Tawana just said they just announced the one survey, EF1 tornado, which, again, I don't know if that is the same tornado or not as the one Waterston Park is very close to Newburgh area right there. So I don't know if that's the same tornado or not. We'll let you know, but it's the same strength. It looks like roughly about 90, 96 miles per hour. All right. So thank you, Tawana, for letting me know on that. We'll keep you updated as we get more details on this. Hold on one second. Let me get this spammer out of the way. Sorry about that. Okay. So just a general light rain. The front has stalled across the southeast corner of the country. So the rain will likely continue to impact areas south of Louisville for a while as we head into the rest of this afternoon. Even parts of Friday, our southern counties still may deal with some very light showers, but there's no severe weather. That's the good news, at least for us. There could be some strong storms in the mid-Atlantic today, but when a front puts the brakes on like this, you really get out of your severe weather mode rapidly. So the good news is there's nothing crazy going on across the country for the next several days, actually. So what is going to be the main weather headline? Well, looking ahead here, Easter holiday weekend looks good. That's some good news. We'll see increased amounts of sunshine, temperatures in the 60s to 70s. There is a low pressure next week. It's got a very odd look to it. Some of the modeling is trying to put this low somewhere in the Gulf. Some try to bring it in toward Atlanta. Some try to bring it over here toward the Gulf Stream off the Carolina coast. The problem with that is if this low pressure can get into the water at all in the Gulf or the Western Atlantic, it would have a good chance of becoming a subtropical storm, the way it's looking right now, which is pretty wild. But that's possible. Either way, because of it being a southeast low pressure, there is going to be a cloud shield that will surround it. That's the only thing we've got to watch for next week. Nothing major. That cloud shield will kind of influence. If we do not see a lot of clouds, we're going to jump rapidly back in the 80s next week. If we end up with clouds, 70s. Either way, it's a win-win, right? So this is going to be a relatively minor setup. As long as the low doesn't drift north, we're good. Right now, all the indications are it's going to stay to our southeast and kind of drift in that southeast corner of the country. Once we get to the very end of your extended toward next weekend, there's a big warm surge here. I mean, there's a lot of warm air flowing in. We'll see whether or not we get back into another severe weather setup at that point, because we're talking about a lot of 80s. Some folks in the southeast corner of the country could be in the 90s by the end of next week and that following weekend. Is that a sign of what's to come for the rest of April? Unfortunately, the signal to get back into a severe weather setup is showing up for the last, especially 10 days of April. So that's something we don't want to see. But this is going to be a pattern. It's going to be very difficult to shake. And the main issue is we've got a block in the southeast corner of the country, and these low pressures just keep rolling on out in the Midwest and cut up into Canada. And if that pattern continues, you put the entire section here of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley into the severe zone. And that pattern wants to try to come back again. I hope it doesn't, but that is the signal right now that we are watching. Okay, you guys good? I didn't want to spend too much time today. I think you guys are tired of seeing me this week. Dwight, was it tornado went through Corden? They're looking at Corden, or Danielle, not Dwight, I'm sorry. Danielle, they're looking at Corden right now. So we'll know on Corden here very soon. They have several teams out. So we've only heard back so far from the one that John Gordon, the meteorologist in charge at the Weather Service, he's at the one that's at there at Watterson Park, not far from the airport. So again, I don't know yet if it's 2 EF1s or 1 EF1 that has moved through that area around Louisville International. We will keep you updated. All right, I'm going to get there for now, guys. I got to get to work on trying to figure out more on these surveys, get everything ready for the midday show. Make sure to tune in today on midday at 11 a.m. We'll have much more on this. In fact, all of our newscasts today will keep you updated on the survey and damage reports as we get details on that. Please stay safe, take care of each other, and I will see you guys on the flip side.